Promise you, you will leave this session richer than when you entered. Not in money, but in spirit. All right. Okay, take your seats, folks. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us in this beautiful theater, Théâtre L'Atelier. My name is Per Strömbäck. It's my honor to do the interview here, but the star of the show is, of course, none other than Deborah Manis Gardner. Big hand. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Mama Music Festival and Convention. Welcome to Paris. I'm not local to Paris, so it's weird, but I can say welcome to Europe because you came all the way from the American East Coast. Thank you for making the effort and travel to be here.
It's my pleasure.
Who has traveled to be here today? Hands up. Good, excellent. Bonus points for anyone who's traveled from a different country. Oh, good, excellent. Well done. Who's traveled from a different No, that's a stupid joke. Okay, so this session is, I think in French it's synchro, comment ça marche, which I think translates to syncs. How does it work? Who here has signed a contract with a sync? Hands up. A few people. Okay. Who here has been involved in a negotiation with a sync? Who here has made music that was synced? Okay, a few people. Okay, great. Why are you here? You already know how this works. Tough crowd. Okay. Deborah, you are called the Queen of Sync. Is that right?
Actually, the queen of sample clearances, but that flowed into the sync world because of my specialty with hip hop and rap.
The queen of sample clearances, and that makes me the jester at the court of sample clearances. So why don't we start right there? Explain the terminology, please, if you would. Sync versus sample clearances.
So a sample clearance is when you incorporate a pre-existing copyright and put it into a new copyright. Sample means you've lifted the original and it's publishing and master. If it's called an interpolation, it's just the publishing. Synchronization is when you take this music and you sync it, you lock it to a visual. And sync has evolved over time. It used to be television and film, but now we talk about video games, we talk about podcasts. We actually, even though you're not syncing to a visual, podcasts are thrown into that sync department, or we try to make it easier. When you're dealing with new technology, again, if you're on dealing with TikTok or social media, that is synchronization. If the music is locked to a brand, that is a form of synchronization. It's advertising. So it's really evolved, it's expanded, and this panel or session that we're doing is for me to remind people that it's never free. And so the TikTok uses, the Instagram uses, the Facebook or Meta uses, I just aged myself, there is a value or a fee tied to the uses of those songs as they're synced up to a visual.
Okay, I have follow-up questions. Hold that thought. Some more people already arrived. I guess I was a little bit trigger happy getting this show on the road. Welcome, new arrivals. I hope you come in peace. Are you informed about this session and who is on stage and what we're talking about, or do you need to get that context again? Everybody's informed. Is there somebody in the room who's not informed who we are and cannot read the sign? Okay, a few people. Okay, so let's just backtrack 1 second. We're here to educate about how sync works, and now we just learned that its sample clearance is another flavor, a neighbor of that, let's say. You're going to correct me in a second, Deborah, I'm sure. This is Deborah Manis Gardner. She's the owner, founder, president of DMG Clearances out of Delaware in the United States. And she's known as the queen of sample clearances, and I'm nobody. So my name is Per Strömbäck, but you don't have to remember that. Okay, everybody happy? More questions? And by the way, if you have questions, because I have lots of questions, but your questions must be smarter than mine, right? Or there's no pressure, and like, you don't have to work too hard to be smarter than me, so that's fine. But if you have questions, we will give some space for them. So please, if you want, you can start thinking about them already now. But let's get back to what you just said, Deborah, when you explained the difference between sync and sample clearance, because there's a word there that you just kind of rushed past. Did you say interpolation?
Right. So, okay, so I've been doing sample clearances since 1990, before there were actually rules, laws, structures about this. So we always use the word sample, and then we would say replayed sample or resung sample. And then someone came up with the word interpolation. I have no idea who it was, but now we use the word interpolation, which means the master is not used. And the reason samples kind of flow into the sync world, and you'll see this with a lot of music supervisors, but when Drake or Khaled or Beyonce uses a song, they sample it, and it's a great beat. A lot of music supervisors end up licensing a song that they've been turned on to that's been sampled, that beat. And so what's great about hip hop, rap, and sampling, and I know I beat this drum continuously, but that genre of music changed the world of music. Prior to hip hop and rap, producers were not paid a piece of publishing or writer share. They were just paid a fee. If you look at the Beatles, if you look at the Rolling Stones, those producers are not writers and are not publishers. Jump ahead to the 90s, you've got Marley Marl doing 14 Shots to the Dome with LL Cool J, and he starts with 30% writers and publishing credit before he even adds a sample as part of his compensation, as well as getting, producer royalty. It was hip hop and rap that did that. Certainly not rock and roll, and certainly not punk or any other genre of music or classical or anything like that. We have to give credit, I'm going to give credit, to sampling hip hop and rap for the evolution it did in the music industry. Hip hop and rap, we were told, was a phase. This music wasn't going to be around. I think we've proven that not the case. I started doing sync clearances because a lot of music supervisors and a lot of producers wanted the feel of that music but didn't know how to do it because there were 13 writers and 6 publishers. Boo-hoo, how hard is it? It's not, because the sample clearance establishes those splits. So you just have to go to more people. Well, jump ahead to the year 2025. Now we have fractionalized publishing. So it's a worse situation where maybe Jeezy's left a piece with Sony, but also sold a piece to Harborview, and so you've got 2 people to go to for 1 writer. So sync has become a little bit more intricate. There's a lot more players. As the prior panel discussed, less money is budgeted for synchronization purposes, and so we kind of have to juggle all of that. I threw a lot at you.
I love it. It's great. I have a pen and a paper, so you go. I'll just make notes. So when rap first came, it was a threat to the youth, even a menace to society. Isn't it ironic that it developed like new legal structures for copyright licensing?
I mean, I got into that genre of music because I came from punk rock, and I felt as though that was a fuck you to the establishment. We were told that it's theft. It wasn't, and that they're not musicians, and they're not creative, and they're not artists. I'd like to see many of you in this audience take a beat, slow it down, chop it up, and flip it, and make a whole new song. It is not easy. It's as difficult as playing an instrument as it is sampling a song and taking a pre-existing copyright and making it work into a new song. It is an art. Doesn't mean you have to like it. It's kind of like if you go to a museum and you see Monet or Degas and you recognize what those images are, and it's something you deem as art. Well, people are artists that do collages. That is another form of art, taking pieces of pre-existing or other pieces of art to create something new. Sampling in hip hop and rap is the exact same thing.
Is there anyone who did like a master's thesis on the post-structuralist philosopher Jean-Pierre Bourdieu? Are you familiar with him? Is there any French people in the room? Are you familiar with arts sociology and post-structuralism? Okay, so maybe, Emmanuel, for next year you can do a seminar on how Jean-Pierre Bourdieu's theory about how the avant-garde becomes the establishment is illustrated by Deborah's examples here. But that was a very long joke and a very difficult way to be funny about post-structuralist philosophy. Instead, let me go to the multiple credits. Because you said that there are so many different authors to a song, and people struggle with, the distribution, and now we learned that you know how to fix that problem. But how do you know that they are actually authors, and how do you make sure that all the authors are credited? When a band leaves the studio, they don't sit down and write the credits. They go to the bar.
Well, I do work with some producers, and we actually work on just, music sheets where people actually write down. There was this amazing manager who has since passed by the name of Francesca Spiro, who used to count the number of words each rapper did and count the beats on what each producer did to break down what the percentages were between songs. You've got artists like Tupac, who, had a friend that was sleeping on the floor, had a hard time, and to help this person out, gave him 1% of a Tupac song. That's worth a lot of money. As a clearance agent, I kind of kicked myself. Instead of charging a flat fee, if I'd even collected 0.5% on every song I worked on, I have worked on at least 500,000, if not 1 million songs in my career on sample clearances. But I don't want to go too much down the rabbit hole of sample clearances, because this is about sync clearances. It just samples led into sync, and I think that genre of music has a heavy influence on what goes on in the sync world. I'm working on the new Grand Theft Auto game, where I'm clearing close to 2,000 song titles. And we make sure that we have obviously different genre of music, and hip-hop is a very strong component.
Good. So let's go into sync clearances, but can you give us a little bit of context? Like, can we hear some war stories? Let's start optimistic. What is your best story from, the trenches of sync clearances?
So we got to kind of talk about this earlier when we were getting to know each other. So I don't know how many of you guys know the movie School of Rock with Jack Black, which had some hard clearances. We had The Doors, we had Stevie Nicks, and as you know, there's Led Zeppelin. Well, before we got the Led Zeppelin approved, that scene was shot with 6 other songs that I cleared. But they wanted Led Zeppelin. But we were not allowed to send script pages. We were not allowed to send any of the dailies. So if you've ever watched the entire movie, at the very end, after the credits, there's Jack on the stage with the cast, explaining the scene where he wants to use the Led Zeppelin. And they took that and they sent it to the approval parties of Led Zeppelin. And that is how we got Led Zeppelin cleared for School of Rock. And I was pretty stoked about that.
Did you orchestrate this? Like, were you the puppet master?
Oh no, that's Jack. But I mean, again, I've been doing this for so long. There's so many happy, fun stories of where music has made a difference. And the time that we're in now, and not to go down the political rabbit hole, or I'm trying to not use too much profanity, but when Biden was elected as president of the United States, I actually worked on clearing all the music for his campaign. The weekend before the election, I had reached out, Eminem's my client, and I reached out to his people, and we actually cleared Lose Yourself, which was the weekend. So we had that on all social media literally the weekend before the election day. It was the #1 streaming ad prior to the election. And music was really key in getting him as president at that time.
Wow, that speaks to the power of music. I wonder what the other side did. Never mind that. I know what they did later, but also let's not get into all of that. Hey, so that's some success stories. Can you share a horror story?
I'll share the one we talked about, because there's a lot of them. But When I started working with Rockstar Games, I started with San Andreas. And if you think back to GTA and how violent, with a lot of, raping and killing and drugs, and we don't do as much in the next one that we're releasing next year. But we cleared James Brown. He had already passed away, but there was an approval party that we went to, and they had approved it because they really didn't know what Grand Theft Auto was about. And I finalized my deals, I confirmed them, went to contracts were signed, and they were paid. And they wanted to retract. And my client's like, oh my God, what do? We got to drop a bag of money at their front door. And I said, absolutely not. We did the right thing. That was their mistake. And unfortunately, the people that approved it on behalf were fired. But that's not my problem. I did the right thing. And so it's a sad story, but I mean, we cleared it properly. And that's what you're going to learn in synchronization. You have to, it's boring. It's paperwork. I'm sending out a letter of request to the person. They're coming back and giving me permission, and we're negotiating a quote. But then you need to make sure that the paperwork is signed and everything is finalized and people get paid. And so when you sometimes see these lawsuits that are going on because, oh, we didn't go to contract, well, it might have been that everything was almost there. So every situation is different. But it's not that exciting in that we're just facilitating deals and making sure that people are compensated and that they approve of the use.
How much of that process, though, is about creative input and a meeting of the creative minds and inspiration sparks flying? For example, the Jack Black story, that's very much driven by his vision. So how much do you get into, like, if you cannot clear a right, do you suggest something else that can be better or as good? Like, how much of it is not legal, but about, content creativity?
So when you're working on synchronization, you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You have the director, you have the producer, you have the showrunner, you have the music supervisor, you have the wife of the director or the girlfriend. There's a lot of people who want to put their 2 cents in. When I did The Defiant Ones, which is the documentary story of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, I worked on that for almost 3 years. They went through 7 executive producers. They kept getting fired. My job, in my opinion, is not only getting music cleared, but to keep everyone calm. Kind of like, if you know the character Linus from Snoopy, and he had a blue blanket, I am Linus's blue blanket. I'm there to give comfort to all these people, and everyone has an opinion, and everyone has an idea, and if the idea doesn't come to fruition, if it doesn't happen, it's my job to redirect people to keep everyone happy, so that they have an end product. My role is never to be in the spotlight. My role is to be in the background so that my clients who are in the spotlight look good.
So in a different timeline, back to the San Andreas example, in a different timeline, had James Brown still been alive at that point, maybe he would have loved the game, would have been a different conversation?
It's possible. I mean, when you're doing music licensing, you have to keep in mind it is an emotional transaction, because music is emotional. So a lot of people will come to me and say, I want to use this song, no one ever uses it, it's not very well recognized, it should be really inexpensive, and they should say yes. But then there's the person who created that song. And maybe I'm coming to them for, I don't know, a drunk scene where someone is like really, really drunk and passed out on the floor and vomiting, and we want to use this song to emphasize the emotions of what's going on. But the creator of the song might have had a family member who was an alcoholic or lost someone to alcoholism, and so they don't want it used. And then the argument's like, I can't believe they don't want it used. We're going to make them money. This is what I mean by emotional. Music is emotional. And so when someone writes and creates a song, Anita Baker, she won't allow her music to be sampled. In her mind, she likes her music in its purest state, the way she created it. And you have to respect her because she has never changed on that. Faith Evans and Anita are friends. And she said, I love you, but I can't allow it, because if I allow it for you, I allow it for other people. When clearing for synchronization, a lot of times we're asked, or it's in the contract, if no alcohol, no drugs, no feminine hygiene, no adult diapers. I mean, there's language in contracts that really prevent that stuff. There are people who don't want their stuff in R-rated productions. So you can imagine how hard it is for me doing Grand Theft Auto and going to Donna Summer's camp, and the widow is very protective of Donna Summer. And so you have to try to either respect their emotional denial or see how you can convince them to feel otherwise. So that's what I mean by it's very emotional.
I'm tempted now. Can you walk us through the process? Can I be the big shot Hollywood producer and I reach out to you because I'm making a new movie? Let's say it's a sci-fi rom-com between an alien and an astronaut, and I need something really romantic for when they complete their relation. Soft lens, nice dimmed lights on an asteroid. Do I come to you with a specific song, or can I just come to you with an ask, like the brief that I just gave you?
Right. So there's multiple. First thing I'm going to say is, what's your budget? What is your overall budget, and what is your music budget? What is the synopsis? What media are you looking for? Is it all media now known hereinafter devised, or is it all media excluding theatrical? Or is it only for streaming platforms? Again, technology and everything changing, back in the day, it used to be all media, and you just wanted it every place. And you used to limit the term. That's why if you guys see on Netflix where things are missing or they're taken off, it's because the term is up. So these are the key questions, money, storyline, what rights do you need? And then it's the nitty-gritty of how is the music going to get used? So it's a lovemaking scene. Do we see the alien's nipples? That is a question that is asked when you're clearing and there's a nude scene, or at least in the United States. You guys are so much freer here. But it's, is the nipple seen? Those are the silly questions that I get clearing music. So we start with that whole outline, and I kind of hold my clients' hands to gather all that information together. And then it's kind of funny, you can ask me what song I recommend, but chances are you already know what song you want, and you're just being polite and asking me what I recommend. And that's usually the game. So again, my job is just to kind of work with whoever's across the table for me, whether it's the copyright holder or my client, and to make everyone happy and have a final outcome that everyone is satisfied. They got their money, they got their credits, and they got the song they want used in their film or production.
Yeah, but we just changed the script and added the lovemaking scene, and we're almost done with the movie cut. And I need this licensed yesterday. I don't have time for all of this.
Well, you should have thought of that. So then it goes down to, what is the budget? What is the vibe you want? What is the BPM? What are you trying to evoke? And then if we're kind of out of money because we're at the end, which is what I'm going to guess, we also might even consider library cues or going for less expensive material. Because you just said you're at the end of the movie, you shot everything, so you're out of money.
Yeah, that's the problem. And also, the alien has so many nipples, and they're neon. Did you say library cues?
Yes.
What's that?
So there are libraries. And for those of you in the audience that create music, please be careful when you sign up with libraries, because some of them, in the language of their contracts, they try to take ownership or take too much of the revenue that's derived. But there are good companies of library music that has it can evoke a feel. It's usually a lower cost of money. And then even the major publishers have created that. There's APM, there's Extreme, and so Sony's got one, Universal. All the majors have library companies with other names under their umbrella name. And then there's a lot of independent companies as well.
Okay, but the song I want is not from one of your clients. Can you still get it for me?
I can always ask.
And how does that work? Now, Now you can answer me like I'm not pretending to be the Hollywood producer, but the person interviewing you. Can we get the inside of that process?
Right, so it's just you're just regurgitating information for the recipient. So we know everything that's going on, but they know nothing. And so what I'm doing, I like to say, is handing it to them on a silver platter, which means I'm giving them every bit of information they possibly need. Because chances are the person I'm sending that request to is not even the approval party. They need to go to a third or fourth or fifth person. So we want them to look as intelligent as possible by letting them know what the film is about, who directed it, what our budget is, who's going to be distributing it, where, who our audience is, who's starring in it, other music that we've cleared to kind of like if we need to amp it up. Like let's say we wanted U2, and U2's going to want to know, well, what other songs are being used in the film? So we're giving them every piece of information they could possibly need, so they don't even have to come back to me with a question. It's going to be a matter of yes or no, and if it's yes, how much? And if it's no, why? And what can I do to turn it into a yes?
And how, okay, I guess that's a question, like how long is the string? How long is that process? What's the longest time that you've been involved before you got the final yes?
I'm doing something right now. I've been working on the new GTA game for 3 years already, and that comes out next year. And so we've got approvals that date back 3 years. And then we actually had someone who said, is it too late? It's been 1.5 years. I'm like, nope, give me that approval. I'll take it. So it's always ongoing. If you've got that short window, though, you need to make sure I've got 24 hours to make this happen, or I've got a week, or I've got 2 months. Again, you're feeding all that information to the copyright holder, where if you go to someone and like, yeah, I'd like to help you, but my approval party is on their honeymoon, which happened to something I was clearing for the Harris campaign, and I hit him up on Instagram, and he responded and actually thanked me that I did bother him on his honeymoon because it was money that he made for his song being used on the campaign. So I stalk people also.
It's a hustle.
Again, I've been doing this for so long. So back in the 90s, when I used to have to find people, and let's say they were deceased, we used to reach out to cemeteries to see who paid for taking care of the plot to try to find the estates. So the Don Cherry estate, I'm working on clearing a song of theirs for a documentary I'm working on. It's my last quote I need. And I was reaching out to the person who is listed on ASCAP, the PRO, in the United States, not responding to my phone calls, my text messages, or my emails, but nothing's bouncing back, so then I even sent a FedEx. Then I thought, well, who is Don Cherry's stepdaughter, Nana Cherry, who then I reached out to her management, but then there was also a son in Sweden, reached out to his manager.
Eagle Eye?
Yes, who then brought me back to the States to let me know that the person who was in charge of the estate was brought to court for not doing their job, was removed for handling the estate. This happened last night. And they said, if it's not too late, we still would like to be part of this project. Can you send us the paperwork? I woke up this morning, I sent them the paperwork, and they signed off. And that had been outstanding for 6 months. So, so you kind of have have to like look, if you go to someone and they're not the right person, or that's not the answer you need, or you're not getting an answer, thank God for social media. And me just like, I unprivated myself so that anyone can follow me or reach out to me, but that gives me the ability to then find people and see how I can get the answer. And it worked.
And do you have a side gig as a private eye looking for cheating husbands?
No, but I like to watch that on the Discovery Channel.
Okay, time flies. You'll get the chance at questions in a second. I just want to follow through on the process. I'm now the Hollywood producer again. And we just found the song, and we're happy. But what happens next? There's a contract signed, there's some payment. Can you walk us through that process?
It's a lot of paperwork. So once my client confirms what they're using, not until it's locked that I then request an agreement. And the reason being is once you request an agreement, in the world of sync, most copyright holders can charge a kill fee. So if you yourself are doing the sync clearances, just be very careful before you confirm anything. But that's what we do. We then confirm that the songs are being used in the project. We give them licensing information. We give them invoicing details. If they can't do a contract, we whip up the contract for them, try to make it very simple, a few pages, and then we facilitate that. We traffic it. We make sure that our client signs. And again, it's a lot easier in the 90s when I used to actually have to mail and send out checks. Thank God for ACH and wire transfers. But everything is done digitally. You know, you use DocuSign or whatever system you use, so everything's done online. So there's no excuse that it can't be done quickly.
And then, like, fulfilling the delivery of the actual recording, do they get that from Spotify, or is that also a separate process?
That really depends on my clients. You know, sometimes they gather it themselves. For my video games, we always ask for a WAV or an AIFF file all the time so that we have the highest quality of stuff, especially if you need to be able to edit it or what have you. For, you know, you're not, you know, you don't have permission to lengthen a song or change a song, but you have permission to edit for it to fit the scene. Make sure that's part of the agreement.
And then you said kill fee, so if they change their minds, they have to pay.
So if you changed your mind after you told me to confirm something, there's usually a kill fee that can be up to 50% of what that fee was. I don't agree with this. It's what the publishers and labels do.
It's a pretty cool name for a punk band of lawyers. Okay, folks, this is your moment to shine. Yes, the lady in the center. Do we have? Yes, there's a mic coming. Please, what is your question?
Hello, thank you for the panel. I had a question, two questions actually. First one being, have you ever had to clear two different songs for one scene, depending on the territory or because of like cultural references or something like that? And the second question is about library music and of course AI. What's the role in that and what's the future for that? Thank you.
So for the first question, if you're talking about split territory, which was just, if it's one song with split territory, we do that all the time. A lot of times in the United States, the publisher in the US has the right to quote for the world, and then they have to flow that revenue through. If they do not, then yes, we have to go to each of the publishers for the split territory, if that was what you were asking. Unless you were asking to use two different songs in one scene, are you suggesting where you remove it from one territory and then use a different song for a different territory? So you have to pay for and clear both songs for each of those territories based on that use. But that's not common because usually a film is locked and you don't want to go back in and change it. Part two was you asked about music libraries and AI. So I am anti-AI. I am an advisor to a company that does ethical AI. In my opinion, and it's a strong one, AI is like sample clearances. You are taking intellectual property all over the place, putting it forth for someone to grab and use. Well, what is a sample? You're taking a bass line from here and a horn hit from here and a vocal from here, and you're incorporating it into a new song. And if we didn't clear it, we would be sued. And it was called theft. So why in the AI community, we know that they can program it to identify it. So it should all be paid. Then you could come back to me and say, well, what if it's got like 300 snippets of AI into one song? How do you split that up? Fractions. This is the music business. We've been doing fractions for a very long time. So it's bullshit if someone says that they can't be done because of the fractionalization of the penny. Spotify fractionalizes a penny. Clearances fractionalize a penny. Publishers are used to that. So we can apply that to AI. But that is just solely my opinion.
Do you think maybe they use that more as an excuse than a real reason because they want to keep the money themselves?
There's a lot of stuff that uses excuses. It's kind of like I went to the CES conference in Vegas years ago, and music was over here, and technology was here, and they didn't really cross over. And while I'm watching the tech people, they're like, the use is organic. We shouldn't have to pay for it. Organic. I hate that word. Organic. Everything should be paid for. Everything has a financial value. The AI companies want to make the money, but they don't want to pay out the money. I mean, we've had some great conversations, even at dinner last night, where my publicist's husband had a fascinating comment where he said, yeah, they're probably raising all this money, so they've got money in the bank, so when they get sued, they'll have the money there to pay it out. And it was the smartest response I have ever heard with AI. So Mac's pretty brilliant. Yeah.
And if you go to Whole Foods, organic is more expensive. Ha ha. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir, with the hat up here. Can we bring the mic, or can I? Actually, let's do this.
You talked a bit earlier about Netflix. You said some movies went out from, we cannot see it because of the music rights. Before, they used to pay only a big fee, but no royalties or copyrights. And I've heard that it's changing now. Can you say something about that if you know?
You know, I cannot imagine Netflix or Amazon, Hulu, or any platform ever paying royalties. It's like with Grand Theft Auto with 2,000 song titles. We're not equipped to do royalties, and they're flat fees. The reason music or shows or movies are pulled, there's multiple reasons. Sometimes something's getting pulled from Netflix because it has a limited contract and it might be going to a different platform. Sometimes you see these ads, see Harry Potter until next week because then it's going to someplace else and it's going to a different platform. But then there was a TV show called The Wonder Years. And you can't see that with the original music because back then we didn't do perpetual, we did 10 years. And to go back and re-clear that stuff would be astronomical, or so people claim. So that's why some stuff gets pulled. Or sometimes there's really obscure movies that you just can't find on any platform. And it could be because when the music was cleared, it was a limited territory or a limited term, and no one has gone back to re-clear it. And so that's the cause.
All right, yes, okay, over here. Okay, last one. But I need to do some more. Okay, so we'll do make it quick, and then I have something more. Okay.
Okay, quick question. Just, I'm a beat maker. I'm using a lot of sample, and I saw there is a platform like Tracklib. Do you think it's a good solution to have more opportunities for sync or something like that to use sample from Tracklib, or there is no difference, and I can use any sample, and people will try to clear it?
I can answer this quickly. I was an advisor for Tracklib and helped them create the whole structure. And that was intentional, where we made sure that sync rights were included in those sample deals, because sync rights are usually not included in a sample deal.
Okay.
So that is, but you know, Splice people are a little bit more cautious because there have been situations where they didn't necessarily have the rights. So just be really careful. But Tracklib, make sure you look at the labeling, and it says if it has sync or not.
Okay.
Emmanuel Legrand is in the sidelines here. He's arguing with me, but you were a few minutes over time, so I should have a chance to do one, because Deborah, I know you have Snoop Dogg in your pocket.
Yeah, I do.
Why is Snoop in your pocket?
Because you told me to bring him. But he's one of my clients.
And
So?
what's the story with this figurine?
I mean, the interesting thing with Snoop is that's intellectual property, and a lot of the pieces that you see out there initially did not have consent, like Snoop on a stoop where he's smoking a joint in the little elf outfit. That initially was not cleared. Snoop's team were aware of it so that they could take whatever legal actions were needed. But I know Snoop is just a big Parisian love here after the Olympics. He did a fabulous job. And now he's not doing music anymore. He wants to just do the Olympics and nothing else.
And who doesn't? Who doesn't? Okay, for next year, if you will have us back, we demand more airtime, and I hope that you are with us. But now, Emmanuel, please make your grand entrance.
Well, Deborah, you've been coming here quite a few times already. Last time you came, you had a family drama happening. This year, I think it's flowery, to say the least, because you're going to get married next week. So, thank you so much for coming, and from all of us. De rien. And hopefully next year or the following year, you will be back. Thank you so much, and thank you, Per, for the very witty interview as usual. Thank you so much. We're going to have a 15-minute break, and then we're back with the Anatomie d'un succès. with the whole team of the DJ Mehdi documentary. Thank you, et à tout de suite.